All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
And that it says preparing for a React interview, making sure I'm on the right screen.
Yes, it's the correct
Oh,
screen.
all right, cool. You never know. All right, so yes, preparing for a React interview during the pandemic. This is a challenging time, but I just want to start off by encouraging everybody because the world needs developers more than ever now. Everything has, if you weren't online, you're online now and having to get information out. And technology continues to advance. So you definitely don't want to quit. You want to keep going. And I'm going to provide, my experiences. So let's so I'm Joe Warren. I'm a software engineer at USAA, and just a little bit about my journey. I'm a career changer and started to teach myself how to code and attend a free code camp. Spent a lot of time there, and then I went to Dev Mountain. And coming out of Dev Mountain, I was able to land my internship at Call 'em All. And Mike taught me everything that I know, so I'll always appreciate him for that. And that led to my job at USA. So it definitely, it wasn't just a linear experience like this. There were a lot of ups and downs, and I want to kind of get into some of that. So the prologue of my story, 132 applications I submitted when I was interviewing or trying to interview. Ended up getting 20 interviews. This was from probably January until July. So that just gives you an idea of the time frame. And then on a daily basis, networking like crazy, using LinkedIn, um, trying to build my brand, doing articles, videos, anything that I could do to try to elevate my presence online and get around other people. Just trying to hit up every avenue possible. And this is a picture of David and Goliath because it definitely felt like that. But you know, David won. So story time. So let me tell you a little story about one of the experiences I had interviewing. So I'm going to try really hard not to say names, and I hope nothing slips out. So if I do, just you didn't hear anything. So there was this company I really wanted to work at, and I got all dressed up, had my tie and everything on. So I get down there, and they started asking me questions. Once I get in, they give me a tour. Everything is going well. So then they started asking questions about HTML, CSS, React, and I'm getting most of them right. They're engaged. Everything is going well. So I don't see a computer or anything. I don't see any whiteboards. So I'm like, what are we going to be doing? So they take me to a wall and basically say, all right, this is the app that we want to build. These are the components that we want. How would you do it? So I'm standing here looking at this wall, feeling like the crazy mom on Stranger Things. Like, I guess I'm just about to be writing all over this wall. So here we go. So I start building the component, and I have this child component that I'm writing out, and I put state right in the child component. So one thing you need to keep in mind is that your brain is going to make some crazy things here while you're right there on the spot. So so they ask me, and again, this is when I'm still, kind of learning some things, figuring things out. They ask, if we want access to that state in the parent component, how will we do that? And for some reason, I just blurted out, yeah, I probably would set it up with Redux because if I know I need state in all different components, I would use Redux instead of saying I would lift up the state and put the state in the parent component. So this is, again, when I'm still kind of figuring out Redux and all of that. So they're like, oh, okay. So what would that look like? We don't really use a lot of Redux. Can you write that out? So I'm like, wait, who, me? You want me to whiteboard all of this in Redux? So I'm like, okay, that was a mistake. We could go ahead and end this interview right now because this is not going to go well, but I need this job. I want to work here. So here we go. So I start writing all this stuff out, and they're asking me all these questions, and they're saying, it's not really making sense. Can you explain that more? And I didn't know if it really didn't make sense because they didn't understand it, or they use Redux all the time, and they knew I didn't know what I was talking about at the time. So anyway, I get through that. They ask me some CSS questions. I'm able to do that. So then the rest of the interview, they're looking at their phones. And I'm like, they must have some really important emails coming in because they're just staring at their phones, but everything is still okay. So here's the kicker. So as we get up and we're walking, I've seen online that this company they take you out to lunch halfway through the interview, and then you come back and you finish. So we're going down the stairs. I'm like, all right, everything is cool. And as we're getting close to the door, I'm thinking in my head, all right, fellas, so where we going out to eat? Who's driving? And they open the door and they say basically thank you and have a good day. And they close the door. So I pretty much felt like Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out the door on Fresh Prince. And so I'm standing there just confused. I'm like, man, I thought we were about to go out to eat and have a great day. So now I'm in the car driving home. I'm hot because I got on this button up. I'm far. I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm hungry because I thought I was getting lunch there. So one of the things that I hope to help you with is if you don't get the job, you at least get that lunch once we're out of the pandemic. So let's keep it moving. All right. So something that I think is really important is before the battle, you have to know your story. And this is all about being able to sell yourself. This is about your brand. And a lot of times an interview might start off with a question like, so tell me a little bit about yourself, or how did you get in the code? And this is really your time to shine, and your answer can kind of determine the tone of the rest of the interview. So your story, you really want to think about, what are you passionate about? Why are you passionate about this job if you are, or why you want to do it? What sets you apart? And try to practice and find a way that you could get that across in a clear and concise way. You probably heard about the elevator speech. So that's just something that you want to work on, whether it's you're meeting somebody or you're going into an interview or you're at a meetup or anywhere. Just kind of, that's something that you want to spend a lot of time practicing. Know your story. So, oops. Yeah, so, yep, practice your answers, be clear. Don't be afraid to show personality. That's something that, for me, I'm just like, I've got to be myself. I'm going to have fun. I don't take myself too seriously because I would just go crazy. So, and yeah, highlight your skills and your passion. So now getting into the interview process, and every company does it a little bit differently. Even within the same company, teams can kind of pick and choose how they want to go about their interviews. But from all of the interviews I've gone on and all of my friends and colleagues I've talked to, there's enough overlap to where if you haven't started the interview process, I can give you some tips and techniques of things that you can expect. So this is usually what a common interview process would look like. A lot of times you're going to start off with some kind of a phone screen, and this may be with a recruiter, whether you're working with your own recruiter or you're working with the recruiter from the company. When I got this job, I had a recruiter that I was working with. So when we first met, it's just kind of a high level conversation that they want to understand your background, some of your skills. Do you know the languages that the company uses? And they're just kind of filling you out to see if it's going to be a good fit. So that's really what you want to just have prepared, some projects that you've worked on so you can speak high level about it. Try to leave a good impression. And then one of the most important things is ask questions. You want to ask a lot of questions, and if you could get any kind of insight on what the interview process is like after that, that will be extremely helpful, because again, companies can go in all different kinds of directions. So if you could get that information from the beginning of, what the company is like, the company culture, what the interview is, anything that you can ask, write down your questions and try to get some insight ahead of time. Yeah, I keep getting ahead of my slides. So, yep, ask questions. All right, so then when you get to the step of if the recruiter, they feel confident about you, you left a good impression, and they want to go ahead and pass you through. Next is more than likely going to be a phone interview. So these can have a lot of behavioral questions and high-level questions about code. This may be with an IT manager or a lead dev. And these are some of the example behavior questions. So again, they may kick it off with, tell me about your experience. And this is something that you want to already know, something you kind of want to already have practice, so you're not just reaching for something. How do you keep up with new tech? How do you keep up with new tech? Do you, what platforms do you use to be able to talk about that? And one of the unfair things is that, there's it could be unpredictable at times based on who you're interviewing with. So, for example, I've seen this happen. Somebody answered that question saying that they use Twitter. So the lead dev was like, man, he was saying that he uses Twitter. Like he basically he doesn't use Twitter, so he didn't see the value in it. But I was able to explain, yeah, a lot of the industry leaders are on Twitter. I follow a lot of them. The React core team, they're on Twitter. So it is a legit place. So if you do have multiple places that you use to keep up to date, definitely will mention multiple ones if you're able to. Describe a challenge that you've had to overcome. This this I was asked this in a lot of different interviews, so this is another good one to, in my opinion, have something specific that you know ahead of time so you could talk about it clearly. So you're not trying to think of something on the spot. Because the first time I was asked this, I couldn't think of anything. And I was almost like, yeah, can I get back to you on that question? Let's see that next question that you have for me. So have some challenges. And then something that you worked on that you're proud of. You know, hopefully you do have something that you worked on that you're proud of and you're able to talk confidently about. So then a lot of the phone interviews that I've had also ask me these type of questions about the language that they use, just getting a feel of if I understand. So specifically, we're talking about React. So they may want you to discuss class first function components, state and props, access in the child component, state and the parent component, which I obviously blew in that other interview. You know, the lifecycle methods, and then getting into some JavaScript questions like the this keyword, regular functions versus arrow functions. And I'm going to share a link at the end of this that has a lot of front end developer questions, a lot of React questions. So these are resources that you could use to practice and go over this stuff. So they'll also probably check a more high level understanding of like Redux, of testing, of Git, and those kind of things to see if you've worked with those technologies. So you may want to brush up on some of that stuff. Ask a lot of questions. At every stage, you want to be asking questions. So when you get to the end of this phone interview, this is your time that you can just fire away. And let's go to the next slide. Oops. So, okay, before I get to this, so with the asking questions, I've had some of the best interviews when I've had a list of questions asking such as, you know, what is your biggest pain point at this time? So then the interview at that point, it kind of flips because it goes from almost feeling like they're solely in a position of power to now I can see them thinking about the things that they've been frustrated with and they start sharing openly. And so I'm able to gain insight about what exactly they're looking for. And I think do I have a list of that? I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. No, I have it written over here. I actually want to read that to you. So, okay, and these I can share as well. So like the question that I asked a lot was, what is your biggest challenge or pain point right now? Can you describe the company culture? How do devs know what to work on each day? And this was something that was important because I want to know just what the organizational structure looks like, or is it kind of a free for all? Is there a vision path for a long-term career, or is there a vision for a long-term career path? That's something important as well because you want to know, hey, do I see myself working here long-term, and how do you guys help develop people? You know, how's performance measured? Do you have any feedback for me? Now that's a scary question because if you didn't do well, you probably don't want to hear the feedback, but it can, if you have the guts to ask that, you know, you could get some valuable insight back from that. So, okay, so back to the slide. So what to do if you're stumped? Fake it till you make it or be honest. And, you know, people kind of can be on both sides. Both sides of this, but I personally would not recommend faking it until you make it because they're gonna know if you don't know what you're talking about right away. You're just gonna be wasting time. And they're also picturing themselves working with you. There are gonna be a lot of times that you don't know what to do on your job and you need to ask somebody for help. So just the way that you deal with adversity, even if it's something that you don't know, can show a lot. So that's something to just keep in mind, that you don't, it's probably not a good idea to just try to make something up. You can be honest or say, that's something I'm vaguely familiar with. I would love to learn more about it. I just haven't had a lot of experience with it. Something along those lines. All right. So continuing, once you're the technical interview. So once you've had your phone screen, once you've had your phone interview, during this time, there could be a lot of waiting because companies, they have a lot of stuff they have to do. They have a lot of candidates. They have a lot of deadlines. So it can take a while for somebody to get back to you. There are some places I forgot I applied to, and like a month or two later, they were calling me back. I was like, who? Oh, yeah. So you don't know how long you'll be waiting. So for me, I'll just continue researching and studying and applying to places until I hear back. So once you get the in-person interview, the technical interview, which I would imagine is going to be virtual for a while. So some of these things I'm going to talk about you can't necessarily do, but usually that's when you get the campus visit. From the company I was talking about before, they gave me a tour of their campus. They walked me around, introduced me to everybody. We were able to just kind of talk and get to know each other, just filling each other out before we got into the technical portion. So there are a lot of different ways that this can go. And one of the ways that a lot of companies use is whiteboarding and having you solve an algorithm type of problems on a whiteboard. And the type of questions that you get should correlate with the level that you're coming in at. So, you may be reversing a string or something if you're at more of a basic level. So a lot of people feel different ways about that. There can be value in the whiteboard interview because you're able to see how somebody thinks, see how they kind of work through problems. But at the same time, it's like, is this something that they're going to be doing every day? So it can be frustrating when you're only getting whiteboard interviews when you're like, I want to show you that I can actually write code. Like, I want to show you how I write React and how I work in a dev environment. So you do have to prepare for whiteboard interviews, but like I said, if you ask questions ahead of time and you're able to get that information, that would help you so that you're not preparing for the wrong type of interview. So then you may have a code war style algorithm challenges that you do on the computer. So these are functions that you're solving on the computer, generating a Fibonacci sequence. So then you can have a company that actually has you build a small web app right there on the spot. So this is actually how my interview was for the position that I have now, to where they sent me ahead of time. I knew ahead of time exactly what I would be doing. So I knew that I would be making an API call and what I needed to display on the page and how it needed to look. So I really appreciated this interview because I was able to bring my computer. I was able to just fire up a project with Create React App. I pulled in Material UI. So again, shout out to Call Them All. And I was told later on that them seeing me use Material UI was one of the reasons that they chose me, because seeing me pull in the library, look at the props, it was a similar process to what they do with their internal design library. So yeah, thanks again, Call Them All. So yeah, you may have an interview where you're able to build right there on the spot, and that could be good, but it can go wrong as well. I ended up getting a lot of errors on the spot to where things started off great, and I got an error that I just could not figure out why it was there. And I was like, oh man, like it's happening again. It's starting to go downhill. But the team, they actually started trying to debug and trying to figure it out with me. And when it took a little while, I was like, all right, cool. It's not just me. This is something weird. But it felt great because it felt like they really were looking for a teammate. And that's how we end up working once I was on the team. Something happens, we're trying to debug. So hopefully you could get some of those interviews. But yeah, ask ahead of time to see. Another one, you may have to assess a basic React component, point out some issues, talk about things that could have been done better, how you can refactor. So yeah, it could be all over the place, but a lot of them fall under here. And again, ask questions, jot down questions all throughout the process. You don't want to forget questions. And it shows that you're engaged. It shows that you care. But you know, if this is a marriage, it's a two-way street. You want to know about your partner as well. So you want to pay attention to any kind of red flags. And so if there's a lack, we were talking about diversity earlier. You know, if that's something that's important to you, pay attention if there's a lack of diversity. Or if they claim to be fun and there's dust on the ping pong tables or all of the fun items that they have, and you just don't feel that synergy when you're in there. You know, you want to pay attention to these things as well. So let's see, what do we got next? So preparation resources. So these are some links that I'm going to share, but this is the front end interview questions. This is a GitLab. Oops. So this is a GitLab project. I'll say GitLab. We use GitLab. This is a GitHub project, and this has just all kinds of questions that you could go through. So this is a really good one. I'll share that. Can't see my stuff. React interview questions is another one that a lot of these questions I was asked at some point. So this will be another good one to go through. And Code Wars. So if you go to Code Wars, there are a lot of algorithm type of problems that you'll work through, and some of them that have popped up on interviews I've gone on. So that will be another good one. Again, especially if you're still early on in this, or if you're getting back into the job hunt and you feel like you need to brush up on some things, that's a good place to spend some time. So then job hunt resources. I want to show this. This is a worksheet that I kind of put together when I was searching. So I made this available. You can use it if it helps you. All you have to do is go to file, make a copy, and you can edit it yourself. But for this, any company that I was interested in or that had a job post, I put their name here, the date added to the list. Really, I wanted to track everything possible so I could be as organized as possible and know everything, every detail. You know, if I got an interview, what the interview date is, research on the company, who do I know personally, just if I found out the pay and benefits, if I got an offer. So I don't know how other people go about keeping track of their job search, but I had this filled up, you know, for just really, really far. So that's the jobs page. Networking, if I met somebody, and this was especially early on, if I met somebody at any kind of event, I will put their name down. I will make sure I will go home or right there on the spot, connect with them on LinkedIn and just keep track of this. So Mike, you're probably like at the top of mine. so yeah, and some others on this call that I've met over the years. So then these are sites that I use the most: LinkedIn Jobs, set up job alerts so that if anything comes up that you're interested in, you're going to get inboxed or you're going to get an email. Using LinkedIn to network with people. And I absolutely recommend reaching out to people. It could be nerve-wracking to just message somebody that you don't know and thinking like, what are they going to think about me, or will they respond? But I absolutely encourage you, hey, if it's somebody that you see at a company you want to work at, just go ahead and send them a message. The worst that could happen, they just don't get back to you. But people write me a lot, and I love giving feedback and helping and giving back any way that I can. So Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor Jobs, all of these places I utilized and had job alerts set up. And then a lot of the company career pages, they also have, if you go to the careers page, you can sign up for a job alert. So that's a good one too. And then last but not least, Reddit. So I say use this with caution. It's very easy to get distracted on Reddit. Reddit has all kinds of stuff, but they do have a React who's hiring. If you go to their ReactJS, they'll have a who's hiring. So that's good to check out. And then they also have who's available threads as well. And then let's see, this is a web dev. monthly. So you could find a lot of different threads like this, but that may not be the place to start. Alrighty, so that's about all that I have. I wrote an article as well, so I'll share that link that just goes into more detail. So if there's anything that you missed or just want more explanation on anything, it'll be there. Reach out to me. If you have questions now, go ahead and ask. And if you want to connect afterwards, connect with me too. I'm always happy to share. And if I don't know, direct you to somebody else that can help.
Well, you heard Joe. Go ahead and ask him some questions if you have any.
Oh, I got a question. Well, I got an addition as a suggestion. I also used Stack Overflow jobs, which is really nice. So if you're in a situation when you have to do a work visa, like I was a couple of years ago, it also filters out jobs that offer visa, doing the visa for you and relocation. So that's kind of nice. And it also has filters for salary and all that. And actually, that's how I got this job, using the Stack Overflow jobs. So that's a good resource to find about jobs.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. I use Stack Overflow jobs as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I got my current job through AngelList. So if anybody is not familiar with that, definitely go check it out. It's a good way to find startup opportunities. And I got that a few months after I started attending the ReactJS meetup like a year and a half ago. So I had experienced a lot of that same kind of frustration with different interviews, and I was just kind of casting a net as widely as I could. So there are a lot of good resources out there that some small companies might not get as many applicants, and you can kind of stand out if you work hard.
I think that's angellist.co, if memory serves.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's worth it. There's a lot of startups in there. I'll add something too. I had, when I interviewed at Columall, this made me nervous for a while when I started working there, but they didn't have a technical part of my interview at all. So they just met me and talked. And then they went over like the send home work they had done, like the coding challenge kind of thing. And I had blown it. Like there was some recursion in there that it was wrong. And this guy, Jay, sat across the table from me. He was like, so your coding challenge was wrong 100% of the time. I was like, oh, that's right. I think I forgot to push one more commit. This one curly brace is in the wrong spot. He was like, oh, yeah, that's right. So I guess that was my whole technical interview. And then I remember asking maybe a few months later, like I was a little bit nervous, you know what I mean? Because I was like, how do you even know? Because I had sat in by that point like 4 interviews with the team, and everybody else had a technical interview except for me. So one of the things that set me apart when I was interviewing, come to find out, was that I had a blog and I had written a ton of stuff on the blog, and it was just stuff that I was encountering. Like I made a jQuery loading button this week and it was awesome. And then, I encountered this keyword in JavaScript. Oh my Lord. And I basically, when I went to the Iron Yarn in Austin, we had a weekly assignment to do one blog each week. And it was really helpful, and I still can go back and look at it. And I mean, since then I've done like, a total of 3 blog posts in the last 2 years, but still it's really helpful because then people can find you online and look at the things that you have experienced. And some of them might be things that you were really good at, and some of them might be things that you learned a lot from that you kind of failed at. I would suggest doing that. And I've given that advice to a lot of people to meet up. I hope some have taken it.
If they weren't expensive, I would.
A blog expensive?
Yeah, I can get with you on that, because mine, it's a Gatsby blog, and I'm just using Netlify. So
yeah, Leslie's on here too. Shout out to Netlify.
Netlify, free tier. It's pretty generous.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I love Netlify.
I'll co-sign Gatsby with Netlify.
Yeah, let's help out William on that. That's good.
I've got some advice. I blogged about it, so look it up if you want to. But the key point for me was you're interviewing there. They want to know everything about you. You need to make sure you know enough about them to make sure you really want to work there. They're going to give you a code technical review. They're going to make sure that you can code. But I would ask, can I see your code? is I literally started a job after an interview process, and the code was a complete disaster. It's literally the worst code I've ever seen in my life. And it was just an absolute nightmare. So ask, and maybe that'd be an opportunity for them to see that you're curious and that you're willing to learn, and they give you a chance to say, do I want to work on this for 2,000 hours per year? And you very well may not want to.
I just went to Justin's blog for the first time in a while. He's got a lot of posts. He's really helping a lot of people out there. I had a piggyback to that for Justin. When I interviewed at Call it's a telecommunications company, right? We use messaging for phones and text messages. So my question like that was to the president about like, what do you do when the FCC shuts this down? You know, like when you're considered spam. And he had, that got him fired up in a good way, right? He was like PO'd for greatness, like Ray Lewis, and just went on like, no, man, we go to Washington and we take care of all our advocacy throughout the. So I was like, when I was interviewing for them, right, for that part, I was really taken aback, like, oh, like these guys are really, really what they say they are. They know what they're talking about.
This is actually interesting because I should have asked if they had any test coverage before I joined in. But anyway, I got to add it up when I was there. There's a good resource that just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called interviewing.io. And you can test interview with people at Google, Netflix, or all of the large companies, and some of the smaller companies for free. So they will actually call you up and do a fake interview and do the questions that they actually do for the real interviews, and then they'll give you feedback. So they have free and paid plans. So that's kind of nice because you can train up before you actually do any interviews. So that just seems a little bit an interesting resource to get your game on the interview.
I have a question. Let me turn on my video. Oh, I didn't realize I look like such a vampire since it's kind of dark in here. So for recent boot camp graduates, I see a lot of people experiencing the feeling of imposter syndrome. This is kind of more of like an emotional question, I guess, or like how to deal with having those feelings of like feeling like, oh, I don't know much. I don't think I have the confidence to like go out and interview right now.
Oh, I've 100% dealt with that in the past year plus. So you're not alone.
Right, and I see it a lot with boot camp graduates, not so much with like people with like CS degrees and stuff like that. Because I mean, when you take a boot camp course, it's like you learn a whole lot in the span of like 3 months. Yeah, and with self-taught as well. And then you don't go too much
in my boot camp.
Huh?
Mine was 6 months. That's how long mine lasted.
Oh, nice. And
yeah, it was still a part-time program, not a full-time program, so that was why.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can speak on that. First of all, that's a part of the process. You know, that imposter syndrome in this field is always there. There's always something that's gonna make you uncomfortable. But for me personally, my team lead actually told me later on after they hired me, he said that you had the least amount of experience, but you had the most relevant experience. So the things that we learned specifically, like since I was using React, using Redux on a regular basis, using a design library, these were things that some of the CS graduates that they interviewed, they just didn't have that real world experience with those technologies. So just remembering that I'm sure that you learn modern and some of the more updated technologies that are being used at companies. So you may actually have more relevant experience than a lot of other people, you know, so just keep that in mind, keep working, keep networking, and understand that feeling is a part of the process.
Yeah, and I went to a boot camp too. I was a band director for like 15 years and then switched. And some of that was like, I would tell my story like Joe, one of Joe's first bullet points, right? And people were like, whoa, like, what are you talking about? But also I knew that that was like, I was a former teacher, so education is important to me. I knew that that was the beginning of my journey. So it wasn't like, and the Iron Yard, they told us this a lot too, where I went to code school. Like you basically get done with those 3 months and that's like, you now have a set of tools that can you continue learning and go forth and conquer. So hopefully you're trying to find places to interview and talk to people that are in the same understanding as that, meaning they know they're getting a junior developer who's still progressing in their skill set, and that you, like, believe me, we have a lot of interns that call them all and they come out of the CS programs and they've never used CSS. They don't know, they rarely know how to use Git really well, right? Because that's not part of the curriculum. And it's not to slam them, they're really smart, but it just wasn't what they were trained in, right? They're really good at algorithms and they know Java, but when you're making a React app, it's not as useful for some things that you're doing. So like you're saying, with Joe saying too, like if you have legit experience that's useful and you can hit the ground running and you don't have to be like, oh, somebody's going to hire me and then 3 months from now I'll be productive. In some ways you are really productive as soon as you get there. So maybe try to capitalize on those things too.
Thank you all.
I have a question, kind of related to that. For me, I'm doing a career switch too. So I've been a physical therapist and a yoga teacher for like 12 years or something like that, and so I am running into my resume. I'm self-taught developer, and my resume is literally all jobs in entrepreneurship and the healthcare sector. And then, I have like some technical skills, and then my education is like, I have a lot of education and none of it is related to computer science or anything like that. And so I'm wondering what experience, especially if you have similar background, or if you've hired people that are switching careers, like how do you get past the scan of the resume where somebody looks at your resume and is like, I don't know about you.
I'll take a shot at it. I think it kind of depends on the place. I know if you're like at Colombo, we're pretty compassionate and we value a diverse team and diversity from all aspects. So like there's a dude from Hungary who is like a black belt karate that, his wife is like a pro bono lawyer, like he's very different than the guy that worked on the team for 10 years that was a Marine and was very much like, this is the way we do things, So we try to find people that are different than all of our current viewpoints. Because we know that's going to make us stronger, to have that diversity and different backgrounds and thoughts and experiences. But I don't know if that's the case everywhere, right? A lot of times that's not the situation, where I can't speak to it because I've not done it before, but I imagine a lot of it is kind of a good old boys club. Like, oh, we had an interview with you and we liked you because you're a lot like us and you like the same jokes as us. Like, that may be a place to run away from. I don't know, it depends on your current values, but I know that for us at Colomall, at least, we try to look past those kind of things. Like if you're trying to do an internship, you're probably coming from a CS program. So it's very rare. Like Joe is the only person we've ever hired. No, there were two interns ever that didn't have like a CS degree at Colomall. And we have like, right now we have 5 or 6 interns, for a team of like 12 engineers or something. It's kind of crazy. But when we hire full-time people, it's not in the same way, because we know that we're looking for a skill set and like a team member really first, a person that can come in and help us build the product and move forward and make us stronger. Anyway, I'll stop talking, but it might not be that big a deal. I don't have a CS degree either. I have a degree in music education. Not relevant.
I've got a suggestion. Much of my career was in the telecom industry and the Navy. And it's important to show it, but I would not show a page and a half of it or even 3/4 of a page of it. I would literally summarize the non-relevant jobs in one blurb at the bottom: healthcare industry, 2001 to 2015. And then up above, I'd have a little intro section that says, I've never been a professional developer, but here's what I've done to get me here today, and list all your Git projects and links to your Stack Overflow questions and answers, and show that you've been part of a community that you're not professionally employed in. And that way you're not fluffing them with your medical experience, but you're showing them that you're actively learning and progressing, and you have some online profile that they can go check out.
I know everyone hates cover letters, but I also think that's a really great opportunity to explain yourself and to give that feedback, but to start it off strong and say, this is why I'm in this industry. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I'm looking forward to doing for you as a company. And maybe later on, you can talk about some of the transferable skills that you have from, you know, the markets that you're coming from. But the cover letter I found is a really good way to make your case.
I actually have a question for anybody who had to like do a change in career or had to jump from a boot camp to like coming into this workspace. Is there anything you wish you knew before you started that we should probably know before we start like in our professional careers?
I think that, so a little background about me, I was a drama major and then switched over to film. So not really using my my degree either, but I was actually a designer for 15 years before going into development. And I think that, I mean, I'd certainly dealt with imposter syndrome going into development. And one thing that I realized after getting my first development job is that that experience, while it may not have been tech related, there is definitely a lot of things that I learned from being a designer that helped me solve problems in development. Because basically what we do is we're communicating as developers. We communicate through code. We write code that computers run, but really we're writing code for other humans to read. So I think that if you have good communication skills, you're already halfway there. The other stuff, it's like you can pick that up, and you'll pick it up a lot quicker whenever you join a team, but you'll get there.
Also, thank you, Ryan, for answering. I was also a film major coming out of college, so thanks. I really appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah, and if there's any way to like make you don't lie about it. Don't be like, yeah, I was if you're a garbage collector, like I was a trash engineer or something, you know, like I wouldn't do that. But if you can make the experience that you have be relevant to what you're doing, you know, like I was a band director, which every time we had a concert, it's a major project. It takes weeks or months to plan. And I was the drumline person. So I taught, you know, like when you move percussion around, I don't know if you guys have been to a percussion concert, there's like 1 million instruments on stage and all of them are like the size of like a car, you know? So getting everything to and from everywhere, like logistics, I'm really adept at project management, you know, and that kind of thing. So I definitely leaned on that as part of my, that kind of transition. In addition to figuring out how to like what Ryan's saying, it's just problem solving at the end of the day, right? So if anything comes down to it, you're trying to take like this code and make it do this thing, you know, it's all written in this language. So maybe if there's any way that you've had experience doing that in any job, really, it's almost every job probably is problem solving at some point, I bet.
Yeah, I have one in terms of something I wish I knew specifically with the job search. When we were all coming out of my cohort at Dev Mountain, we were all looking for that full-time position. Like we wanted that full-time position with the benefits and the perks and all of that. So we weren't looking at, a lot of us didn't want contract positions. We didn't want part-time. We weren't looking at internships. But my internship ended up teaching me a lot and was a huge reason that I got the position at USA. Now, who was that?
Oh, sorry, it's mine. Sorry.
Oh, oh, so then with the USAA position, it was a contract to hire, and again, that wasn't something that initially I wanted, but it ended up obviously working out greatly, and it was originally an 18-month contract to hire, but companies know pretty quickly if they want you on the team or not, so it ended up going full time after 6 months, not 18. So I would say definitely don't overlook contract to hire positions, internships, part time, because those could blossom in the full time positions as well.
Yeah, William put a chat that's saying most people that are looking for internships are looking for CS majors. That is the case for sure. And I mean, there's good reason if you think about it, because that's part of it's probably part of their degree plan, right? To figure that out as part of CS. I know if, like, I did an education degree, and if I wasn't able to do student teaching somewhere, then I could not have completed my degree. So, like, you know, that had to be the case. It wasn't like, oh, this guy has to come in and student teach, and he's like a, you know, a film major. That wouldn't make any sense at that point. Now, that's changing a little bit. I'm seeing that. I know we're probably a little bit more like forward thinking at Column, but we have had multiple, like we just had a full-time employee start who was an intern, and he had the same thing as Ryan, where he was a graphic designer for like 10 years, and he owned his own graphic design firm. And then, you know, he switched over to doing code because he liked the code side of his own business better than he did like the design part, and switched over. And he was not a CS person. We really liked him, you know, he like really stood out to us. So, I mean, some of that might be, you know, how can you make yourself stand out in that way too? Like Leslie was saying, maybe it's a well-written cover letter that's not like, oh man, I have a lot of advice on this. I'm not going to go too long, but I've done the UTD job fair a lot because we get CS interns from there. And I think the last internship we had open, the reason we have like 4 interns right now is because we had like 16 that made the final round because they were great. Because we had like 600 or 700 applicants for that position. It was for like an engineering team that has like 12 or 13 people on it. You know, it's pretty crazy. But that UTD fair, everyone will come up and hand you a resume, and you look at it, and I keep telling them, we'll go online and do this, but all the resumes look exactly the same, right? And all the cover letters look the same. So like if you can make that stuff stand out, then you have a little bit of a chance. So, and it does matter. I mean, I wouldn't say it matters for everybody, but when I'm reviewing them, it matters to me. I want to find somebody that's not like cut and paste, you know, copy and paste form letter. But anyway, any other questions about interviewing? I'd like to
have a comment about it.
Go for it, William.
Well, there's a really good resource I found out here. It's a member of Dave Ramsey's team named Ken Coleman. He's got some free PDFs on how to do some of these things, like, for example, like how to put a resume together and information you'll want to know about interviewing and these sort of things. It's pretty awesome, and he's people have used what he teaches to land jobs that they love too. So, and there's been lots of those stories. So that's also something I think people should check out in the job search.
Yeah, cool. I feel like we've had a lot of people over the last 4 years that were very much like me, and maybe that's because I started the meetup, which came out of a code school and wanted to join from a different career and get into this, right? So you won't find a better group of people to kind of have a good shared experience and have, like, you know, be willing to listen to questions and field all kinds of questions with you. So I would assume that you guys could reach out online on the Slack team or the meetup site and talk about it. I feel like I could probably go for another 24 hours talking about this. Just following up because Joe was like, here's all this stuff. And it's like, oh, those are all great. We can talk about this all night long. But it's getting, you know, kind of late. So I'm going to start wrapping it up. Very thank you much to Joe. Thanks for coming out tonight and helping us all get a better handle on this stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's always a pleasure. And like I was saying earlier, before the group started, before the meeting started, we do want like more voices from the community that are maybe underrepresented to come up and let us know how you feel. Like maybe somebody has gone through a bunch of interviews and they want to talk about it, or they want to talk about their code school experience. I don't know, reach out to us and let's hook it up. We meet every second Tuesday of each month. So we'll continue to do that in our social isolation for the internet and the beautiful cyber that we all have here. Hopefully we can continue to find more people that are interesting and provide value to all the members in the group too. Yeah, so if you haven't joined already, there's all the meetup group events have a Slack team invite where you can just join the Slack group over there. And you can also, we have an open collective, and we do try to use that money a little bit to do some infrastructure-y kind of things like websites and whatnot. I did get a bunch of notifications from GitHub, like maybe a bunch of you did, that a bunch of things that on your repositories have had security violations recently on the node packages. So one of them was on the ReactJS Dallas website. So you need to get on that pretty soon. Somebody wants to help with that, it'd be good. It's open source. So anyway, we'll wrap it up now, and thanks for y'all for coming, and we'll see you in July. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks. See y'all.